Pornochanchada is the name given to a genre of sexploitation films produced in Brazil that was popular during the 1970s and early 1980s. Its name combined porno and chanchada, as itself combines comedy and softcore pornography. Pornochanchadas were initially produced in the downtown quarter of São Paulo that was nicknamed Boca do Lixo. The genre was usually seen as a part of low-budget films produced there, collectively known as mouth of garbage cinema. Later, there were productions in Rio de Janeiro as well, creating the subgenre Pornochanchada Carioca, which was to find its star in Alba Valeria during the early 1980s. Pornochanchadas were generally in line with sex comedies produced in other countries, but also featured some Brazilian peculiarities. The prominent actresses were Helena Ramos, Matilda Mastrangi, Aldine Muller, Sandra Biariacute, Nicole Puzzi, Monique Lafond, Nadia Lippi, Patricia Scalvi, Rosana Gesser, Zilda Mayo, Zaira Bueno, Kate Lima, Vanessa Alves, Mera Vieira, Adele Fatima, and Marta Anderson. After the end of the Pornochanchada era, they moved to telenovelas or more mainstream genres of cinema. Actresses like Vera Fischer and Sonia Braga have also appeared in Pornochanchadas. The most popular actors were David Cardoso and Nuno Leal Maia. Among the distinguished directors of the genre were Odi Fraga, Tony Vieira and Jean Garrett. Despite conditions of strict censorship in Brazil in that era due to the military dictatorship in Brazil, the state-run film company Embrafilme was generally eager to support Pornochanchadas, because they were not critical of the government and did not depict explicit sex. Producers became increasingly dependent on Pornochanchadas to compete with American films and to guarantee immediate returns. As the genre's success grew, the term began to be indiscriminately applied to various types of films that focused on sexual relationships. Some Nelson Rodriguez adaptations were among such films. By the 1980s, with the availability of hardcore pornography through clandestine videocassettes, the genre suffered a considerable decline. After the end of the military regime in 1985, repressive measures on cinema and television were lifted, marking a virtual end for Pornochanchada. The Brazilian Constitution of 1988, and the subsequent Fernando Collor's government termination of Embrafilme in 1990, marked the end of the era of nudity and sex as a means of drawing mass audiences to Brazilian films. It brought to a closer generation of directors, writers and actors associated since the 60s with the Cinema Novo movement, many of whom were involved at one time or another with Pornochanchadas. Notable films: Aravo dos Sexos, Historias que Nossos Babas Nao Contavam, The Virgin and the Macho Man. Bibliography: Denison, Stephanie. Popular Cinema in Brazil, 1930 to 2001. Manchester University Press. ISBN 9780719064999. Johnson, Randall, Stam, Robert. Brazilian Cinema. Columbia University Press. ISBN 978023110010674.